2,034 LLB candidates who sat for the 2020-2021 academic year Ghana School of Law entrance exams failed. Of the 2,824 students from the various law faculties across the country who sat for the exam, only 790 of them passed, representing approximately about 28%, while the failure represented some 72%. Quite a substantial number of persons who failed there. We've been joined in studio by the president, the SRC president of the Ghana School of Law, Wanda Victor Kuto. Wanda, good evening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Good evening.
There already is a conversation about whether or not this entrance exam is justified, the relevance of it. What is your position on that, first of all?
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, before I talk about my position, there are two schools of thought that I want us to look at briefly. The first has to do with the fact that what you do at the Ghana School of Law is a continuation of what we have done at the faculty level, the LLB.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if you are at the Ghana School of Law, Part 1, there's a course called Criminal Procedure. Now, for a proper understanding of criminal procedure, you ought to have done criminal law at the faculty level. So if you are doing criminal procedure, you do something called, you draft the charge sheet. Now, if you are given a scenario, let's say defrauding by false pretense, you want to draft a charge against an accused person, mm-hmm. Your understanding of the Criminal Offences Act, Act 29, Section 131, ought to be strong. And you will not study Act 29 at the Ghana School of Law. Act 29 is studied at the faculty level. So there is that transition from faculty to the Ghana School of Law. To that extent, the entrance examination may be justified. Okay. Because, I mean, if you...
Then they want to be sure that you know those very basics
right.
And the fundamentals.
Right. So, and with that background, it's justified. Now, there's the other school of thought. Let's go to Article 38 of the Constitution, 1992 Constitution. Right. It talks about the educational objectives of the country. And when we talk about educational objectives, these are directive principles of state policy. There has been issue whether or not these objectives are justiciable, whether it can be enforced. Now, the current law, if you look at the case of the National Lawyers Association, that case, it says that the objective in itself is not justiciable unless it's read in tandem with other provisions of the Constitution. So you ought to have read Article 38 in line with Article 25, which talks about right to education. When you read the two together, then you can give meaning to these objectives. Because if you read this objective, just a minute, it says, the state shall provide educational facilities at all levels. Okay. So if you read this, you will say that, oh, then you don't need entrance exams. I mean, let's open it up. Okay. But we need to read this in tandem with other provisions and look at the reality and also look at what is done in other countries. So, I mean, there's two schools of thought.
And maybe, for lack of time, what would you say is the best way to approach this dilemma of whether or not it is good or otherwise for people from the faculty level to write this entrance exam? Yeah,
one, adequate preparation. This was what happened. So some students graduated in July at the LLB level and wrote the entrance exam in August. So technically, they have just 1 month to prepare. Now, they were examined on 6 areas. If you look at their paper, the paper 2, they had a question on tort and a question on constitutional law. These 2 questions are not level 400 subjects. Okay. They are done in level 200. So if you are done level 400 in July, you have to revise all these courses within 1 month to sit for the entrance exam. So we need to have a national dialogue on this. And this, should we allow, when you are done in July, you wait for a year before you apply to the law school and sit for the entrance exam? You recall in the past, when you are done with WASSE or SSC, you wait 1 year, then you enter the university the following year. Right. So let's have a national dialogue properly.
When it comes to law.
Yes. Okay. But my issue is that if it turns out that every student passed, then all students should be admitted. We shouldn't say maybe because there's no space, we are cutting them off. So, but we should also not say, oh, let's forgo the entrance exams.
Because there's no... That is a conversation we probably might look at later. But for now, we are told that there are plans to petition Parliament. For what exactly?
Yeah, before that. You see, the plans to petition Parliament has to do with students who are already at the Ghana School of Law. Okay. Now, we are also proposing an alternative to management. Now, look, some students who have failed go elsewhere. They go to Gambia, they go to Sierra Leone, they go to Nigeria, and they come back to Ghana for post-call without entrance exams. And if you look at the statistics, 65% of those who were called to the Gambian bar this year are Ghanaians. 65%.
So there's concern that needs to be dealt with.
So the money that goes to Gambia, they pay in dollars. That amount, let's retain it here. Okay. Let's create an option like, let's say, a fee paying for such students. You understand? Let's rent a facility. If it's the issue about space, let's rent a facility. Let's use that money. The lecturers are paid per hour. Let's use that money to pay the lecturers to lecture them instead of they going all the way to Gambia. So if you say 790 has paid, has failed, there are some who have the money who can go to Gambia. And let me tell you, those who failed in 2019, some went to Gambia, came as post-call and passed the bar exam. They will be called to the bar this Friday. Some who passed entrance exams in 2019 failed the bar exams, and they will not be called in 2019. So some failed the entrance exam, went to Gambia, came back, and have passed the bar exam here. So
going through.
Exactly. So let's have this debate properly. Now, talking about the petition.
Very briefly for me, because we need to wrap up on this.
Right.
Petition.
Right. There's a policy at the Ghana School of Law. And management has made it clear that in as much as they want to support that in the concerns of students, it is not everything that is within their remit. Okay. For example, this particular policy, it has legislative backing. It is only Parliament that can amend the law. So we are going to petition Parliament that if a student fails three papers or more, the student should not repeat the entire academic year. This is not to encourage failure. What we are saying is
specific.
Yes, let the student proceed to part 2 and rewrite just the 3 papers. So that's the petition we are going to raise to Parliament. You get a point? Right. So we are calling on all the entire student body that let's use the appropriate institutions first. I've heard concerns. Should we go on demonstration? We will not use that. Should be the last card. We are not ruling there. That should be the last card. We should use the appropriate structures to get the issue solved first. That should be the appropriate mechanism.
Wonder Victor Kuto is the SRC president of the Ghana School of Law. Certainly in the coming days, this is a conversation we'll be having. And if you follow our various channels, you'll get to be a part of that debate. But thank you for making time to speak to us.